Walking into my home to find my wife with 6 men was a nightmare come true. I couldn't believe my eyes. Amy's betrayal cut deep, but my resolve was stronger. Every email and photo I found fueled my need for justice. The pain was unbearable, but I knew I had to act. Linda, a fellow betrayed soul, became my ally. Together we exposed the truth and took our revenge. The confrontations were brutal, but necessary. I lost a leg, but I wasn't going to lose my dignity. This journey is about betrayal, discovery, and sweet retribution. This is my story. Enjoy watching it. Mike Johnson was unsure of what he'd find when he finally got home. He hadn't heard from his wife, Amy, in over a year, even though she knew where he was. As he looked out the taxi window, he thought about his past. When he was 17, his parents died in a car crash. A neighbor, who was a social worker, helped him since he had no family left. His parents had set up a trust fund for him, which covered his basic needs. He played football in high school and was fit. Everyone liked Mike because he owned his own house, thanks to the trust fund. He was nice to everyone. His dad had taught him how to handle his temper and be polite. His dad, who used to teach hand-to-hand combat, had trained Mike well before he died. Mike finished high school and went to the University of Florida. In his 3rd year, he met Amy, who was a year behind him. They went on a few dates, but Mike felt something was missing and stopped calling her after the 3rd date. 2 weeks later, Amy called him. "Hey, Mike," she said. "What's up? I haven't heard from you. Is something the matter?" "I'm not sure, Amy," he said. "I don't think we're a good match." "That's not true, Mike," she said. "I think we are. Can we try again?" "I'll think about it," he said. A week later, they went out again. This time, they connected even better. They had been close before, but this time they really bonded. They kept dating, and after Mike graduated with a degree in economics, he proposed. Amy said yes. They planned to get married after she graduated. Mike stayed in the area, took a job with an investment firm, and they got married in March 2001. He was 22, and she was 21. They were happy, but then everything changed in September. On September 12, 2001, Mike joined the Army. His father's training helped him become a ranger. They were a happy couple and newlyweds living in Mike's inherited house. Amy got a job as a paralegal. When Mike finished his training, he was sent to Iraq for a year. A month in, he became a sergeant. After that tour, he came home, but 9 months later, he was ordered back to Iraq for another year. He re-enlisted, hoping to choose his next post after the tour. Amy wasn't happy. "Why do you have to go back?" she asked. "I need you here." "I don't have a choice," he said. "I want to be here with you too." He held her as she cried. They spent a lot of time together before he left. What Mike didn't know was it would be their last intimate time together. 3 days later, he was back in Iraq. At first, Amy wrote to him often, and he called when he could. But after the first month, the letters stopped. Over 6 months, he got only one more letter and talked to her twice. Mike was confused. After 8 months with almost no contact from Amy, he worried, but kept counting the days until his tour ended. One morning, his Humvee hit a bomb. 4 soldiers died, and Mike lost his lower left leg. A helicopter took them to safety. Mike was sent to Germany for surgeries and rehab. After 3 months, he was moved to Walter Reed Hospital for more surgeries and a prosthetic leg. It took 2 extra months to learn how to walk again. Then he was discharged and sent home. He tried hard to reach Amy, but she never responded. He wondered if she was even alive. Why hadn't she contacted him? He called her parents, but got no answers. He left messages at home. At least he knew someone was there because the power was still on. When the taxi pulled up at 9:30 a.m., he saw his truck and Amy's car in the driveway. He also noticed several cars parked nearby. The cab driver helped with his bag, and Mike got out of the small car. He heard noises from inside the house and cautiously opened the door. What he saw left him in disbelief. There, in the living room, was a scene that shattered his world. Amy was on the floor amid a group of strangers. She was on her hands and knees, stuck between 3 men. One behind her, another in front, and a third at the back. Right then, he pulled out his phone and started taking pictures. The guys heard the door open and saw the flash, then looked up. Seeing him standing there, they grabbed their clothes and dashed out the door. Mike recognized them. He had seen them around the base before. Two of the men had returned to the States when he went to Iraq for his second tour. Amy lay on the floor, not recognizing him. She asked if he wanted a turn since the others had left. "Are you kidding me?" he shouted. "Is this what you've been doing for the past 13 months? Is this why you couldn't write or answer my calls? I get hurt and lose a leg and you're here with everyone in town? Get out of my house! You have 10 minutes to pack and go!" That's when she realized who he was. She stood up and tried to reach for him, but he pulled back. "Don't touch me, you cheat," he said. She stepped away, scared. "Please, Mike, let me explain," she begged. "This isn't what you think." "Are you kidding me?" he asked. "I haven't heard from you in over a year. I come home and find you with 6 guys? There's nothing to explain. Pack your stuff and leave." Then he had another thought. He went to their bedroom, pulled her clothes out of the closet, including her wedding dress, and tossed them out the window. He took the ATM card and the credit card they shared from her purse. He also took the house key off her key ring. He went outside, pulling out his lighter. "What are you doing?" Amy asked, scared. "You have 10 minutes to pack and leave or I'm burning everything," he said. "Now move!" Amy rushed around trying to gather her things. Mike kept track of the time on his watch. She got the last item just as he was about to set them aflame. "Where will I go?" she asked, crying. "Right now, I don't care," he said. "Just tell me where you'll be so I know where to send the divorce papers." "Please, Mike, you have to believe me. This is the first time. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything," she pleaded. But Mike wasn't convinced. "That's a lie," he said. "I haven't heard from you in months. What I saw wasn't the first time. I'm not that dumb. Now go." Amy sobbed as she left the driveway. Mike watched her leave and then went back inside, feeling broken. He sank onto the couch, his leg aching. He couldn't believe what had happened to them. Time passed, and soon the sun was setting. He went to the kitchen to find something to eat when the phone rang. "Hello," he answered. "Mike, what's wrong with you?" an angry voice demanded. It was Julie, Amy's older sister. "Why did you kick Amy out?" "Ask her," he said. "Let her tell you why." "I did," she said. "She told me you kicked her out because you didn't like the way the house looked." "That's a lie, Julie, and you know it," he said. "If you want the truth, come by the house and I'll show you." There was silence for a moment. "Okay, Mike, I'll come by, but this better be good," she said, then hung up. Mike knew it would take her a while to get there, so he sat down at his computer and turned it on. After it booted up, he checked Amy's emails. Amy wasn't smart about passwords, and she used a web-based email service, so he got in quickly. He changed her password to stop her from deleting anything. He knew she could reset it later, but it gave him time. It took only minutes to see this had been going on for a long time, maybe even his entire tour in Iraq. The emails were very clear, and many had pictures or videos attached. "Hey, cutie," one email read. "Had a great time last night. You're so fun." The email had 2 pictures attached, and he printed them out. They showed Amy in embarrassing positions. That email was from 1 week after he left for Iraq. There were many more like it. "Just wait till your silly husband comes back," another email read. "We'll have a hot welcome party for him." That email had a video of Amy with 3 men. It was dated the same day he was hurt in Iraq. By the time Julie arrived, he had printed out a stack of emails and photos. The videos were saved on his computer. It was the same 6 men in most of the pictures and videos. He opened the door for Julie, making sure she was alone. She looked angry. "All right, Mike, what's going on?" she asked, her face red. He pulled out his phone and showed her the pictures. "This is what I found when I got home," he said. Her face went pale when she saw the photos. "Oh my God," she said. "There's more," he said, showing her the printouts from Amy's email. Julie looked through them, shocked. "Did you know about all this?" She shook her head. "I swear, Mike," Julie said. "I had no idea. I knew she was going out a lot, but I didn't know about this." "She never told you anything?" Mike asked. Julie shook her head again. "No, nothing at all. Mike, I'm so sorry," she said. "I knew she was upset about you leaving, but I didn't think she'd do this." "Did she tell you about me getting hurt?" he asked. Julie looked surprised. "Hurt? When did that happen?" "About 6 months ago," he said. "I lost part of my leg. I've been in surgery and rehab for months and never heard from her. Now I know why. I'm sorry, Mike. She never mentioned it. She hardly talked about you these past months, Julie said. Probably too busy with other guys to care, he said. She didn't even recognize me when I came in. So what will you do now? Julie asked. I'm divorcing her, Mike said firmly. Can you forgive her and try to move on? Julie asked. No way, Mike said. I can't get past this, and I feel there's more I don't know. We're done. I understand, Mike. I'm really sorry about all this, she said. I'll talk to her when I see her. She hugged him. If you need anything, let me know, okay? She asked before leaving. Thanks, Julie. I appreciate it, he said. After she left, he went back to his computer to find more proof. By midnight, he had printed many emails and saved hundreds of photos and videos. Looking at the timeline, he saw Amy's cheating started early in his first tour in Iraq and happened about once a week. He also identified the 6 men involved. They were all active duty. From their messages, he figured out which units they were in and the days they went out. He also found out these men were married and some had young children. He noted their contacts. He felt bad their families would be hurt, but he wasn't going to let them off easy. He saved the info and laid down on the futon in his office to get some sleep. The next day would be busy. He woke up early and did his morning routine. After dressing, he planned his day. First, he needed to see a good divorce lawyer. He checked the phone book and started calling. After a few attempts, he got an appointment that morning. Realizing he was short on time, he went to the bank and closed their joint accounts, reopening one in his name. He knew he'd have to split their money, so he got a cashier's check for the full amount. His inheritance and trust fund were in separate accounts Amy couldn't touch. He also closed their joint credit card and got one in his name only, paying off the other card's balance. After that, he went to see his lawyer. Carrying a folder full of emails and photos, he checked in with the receptionist. An attractive woman came out and introduced herself. Mr. Johnson? She asked, extending her hand. He shook it and introduced himself. Please call me Mike, he said. Thanks, Mike. I'm Sally, she said. I hear you want a divorce? Yes, that's right, he said. She looked at him intently. You know I don't represent cheating spouses, she said. Mike placed the folder on her desk. Sally, I've been in Iraq and in the hospital recovering from combat injuries for months, he said. I'm not the one cheating. These emails and photos prove that. She looked through the folder, shaking her head. Oh my, she said. This is clear proof. How did you get these? Well, Mike said, my soon-to-be ex-wife used my computer. They sent photos and videos back and forth. You have videos too? She asked. Yes, and this is what I came home to yesterday, he said, showing her photos on his phone. Her eyes widened. They reviewed the evidence and the details. By the end, Sally agreed to file for divorce on the grounds of adultery, naming the 6 men Amy had been with. Once we file, she'll have 30 days to respond, Sally said. If she doesn't, the final decree can be granted. If she contests it, it might take longer. Since you owned the house before marriage, she can't claim it. The same goes for your inheritance and trust fund. If she fights, we'll use the photos and videos. Hopefully, she'll sign the papers quickly. We can serve her at work or her sister's apartment. That sounds good, Mike said. He thanked her and left, feeling better than the day before. Back home, he called a locksmith to change the locks and then contacted the wives of the men Amy had been with. Not surprisingly, they were all very upset. Most of them had a feeling something was up, but they weren't sure what it was. They all wanted proof, and Paul was quick to email them photos and videos along with some of their emails. He made a few more calls and met some of his friends at a bar on the outskirts of town. They looked at the photos he brought and shook their heads. They knew the 6 men involved and talked about what to do next. As they were talking, one of the 6, a big guy named John Abrams, stumbled into the bar. George, one of Mike's friends, pointed him out. They glanced his way and then went back to their beers, but John noticed Mike and made his way over, looking angry. Well, well, he said loudly, if it isn't Sergeant Johnson. How's your wife these days? She still stretched out for my time? He mocked, grabbing his belt. Mike said nothing, making John push further. What, are you a coward as well as a fool? Come on, big ranger dude, let's see what you've got. He swung at Mike, his fist barely grazing Mike's head. Mike responded quickly, knocking John to the floor in seconds without much effort. Red with anger, Mike started punching John's face, breaking his nose and knocking out a few teeth. The next thing Mike knew, 2 police officers pulled him off John, put handcuffs on him, and threw him in the back of a police car. John was put on a stretcher and taken to the hospital. Mike spent a few hours in jail before an officer came to his cell, waving him out. "Today's your lucky day, soldier," the officer said. "Witnesses said you acted in self-defense and the video proved it. You get to go home tonight with no charges." Mike went home and went to sleep. The next day, he got a call from one of his friends. "Hey, did you see the news?" George asked. "No, I just woke up," Mike said. "What's up?" "Seems there was a string of muggings last night," George said. 5 soldiers ended up in the hospital. It's in the paper. Isn't that just awful?" "Yeah, that's terrible news," Mike said sarcastically. "Anyone we know?" "Yeah, they just so happened to be the other 5 guys involved with Amy," George said. "Isn't that quite a coincidence?" "Yeah, that sure is a coincidence," Mike said, smiling. Later that day, Mike got a visit from his former commander and the sergeant major, a tough man who rarely smiled. He opened the door and invited them in, offering them something to drink. "No thanks, Sergeant," the colonel said. "We just wanted to stop by for a few minutes to see how things are going." "Could be better, all things considered, Colonel," Mike said. "And please, call me Mike. I'm not a soldier anymore, thanks to this," he added, tapping his prosthetic leg. "I understand, and I do apologize," the colonel said. "Not your fault, Colonel," Mike said. "You didn't plant that bomb." They all laughed a bit at that. "I understand you're going through a divorce," the colonel said. "I got a call from your lawyer who said your wife's been involved with 6 active-duty soldiers." "That's right, Colonel," Mike said. "I have names, addresses, you name it. You want them?" "Yes, Mike, that would be helpful," the colonel said. Mike went into his office and brought back a folder. He handed the colonel a sheet with the men's names and addresses. "Would you like photos as well?" Mike asked. "I have photos, video, everything." They liked sending this stuff to each other, and yes, they knew she was my wife. They did it while I was overseas in a combat zone. They're all married, too. "You've done your research, I see," the colonel said. "Yes, sir, I have," Mike said. "I also checked online, and I know adultery is covered under Article 134, Paragraph 62 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. From what I've read, these cases meet the proof needed." "I see," the colonel said. "You might be right from what you've shown. I'll take a look and push it through JAG to see what they say. If they agree, we can try to have them all dishonorably discharged." "Also, Colonel," Mike said, "one of them attacked me last night in a public bar. He ended up in the hospital." The colonel nodded his head. "Personally, I'd expect nothing less, but officially you didn't hear that from me," he said, smiling. "So, what are your plans for the future?" "Well, Colonel, I haven't had much time to think about that," Mike said. "I have an economics degree, but I don't think I'd be happy doing desk work." The colonel smiled. "Why didn't you go for officer candidate school?" he asked. "With your record, you would have been a sure thing." "My dad was an NCO, and I always wanted to be where the action was," Mike said. The colonel nodded, and the Sergeant smiled. "I knew your dad when he was a hand-to-hand combat instructor," the colonel said. "He was a good man. I know he'd be proud of you no matter what you decide to do." He stood and put his hat back on. The Sergeant joined him. He extended his hand, and Mike shook it. "Take care of yourself, Sergeant," he said. "If there's anything I can do, let me know." Mike nodded. "Thank you, Colonel Sergeant Mage," he said. He watched as the 2 men left. Mike spent the day doing small chores around the house, keeping busy to avoid thinking about Amy. That evening, he opened a beer and watched television, his mind drifting over his failed marriage. The next day, he got a call from someone at Amy's work, telling him that she had been served with divorce papers. "Is it true?" the female voice asked. Mike recognized the voice. It was Amanda, one of Amy's friends from the law firm. He always thought she was pretty, but he never said anything. "Is what true?" Mike asked. "That she cheated on you while you were in Iraq," Amanda said. "The man who gave her the divorce papers said it was for cheating. We all heard him." "Yeah, it's true," Mike said. "It's been happening for over 2 years." "And you had no idea?" Amanda asked. "She only did it while I was deployed to Iraq," Mike explained. "Oh my God, you poor man," Amanda said. "I'm so sorry." Well, listen, if you need anything, just call, okay? We all think highly of you and we hate what she did to you. Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate that, Mike said. Later that day, he got a call from Linda, John Abrams' wife. Hey, Mike, she said. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Yeah, sure, Mike replied. What's up? I found out what my horrible husband did to you and Amy, and I'd like to get some payback. Are you interested? She asked. Mike smiled. He knew Linda and thought she was a lovely woman. He couldn't understand why John would cheat on her. He listened to her plan and smiled. This could be fun, he thought. When do you want to do this? He asked. Tonight, if you're free, she said. Come by around 4:30 or 5 o'clock. I'll make dinner and set everything up. All right, Mike said. I'll see you this evening. A bit later, he got another call, this time from Amy. Mike, she cried, I got the divorce papers today. Can't we work this out? I told you it was just one time and it was a mistake. Mike laughed. You liar, he said. I know it was more than one time. Just sign the papers and it'll all be over soon. Otherwise, things might get very public and you don't want that. Damn you, she replied, her tone changing. I'll fight you every step of the way. I'll take your house and everything you own. I don't think so, he said. Call my lawyer, then sign the papers. He hung up and blocked her number. That afternoon, he went to Linda's house and parked in the middle of their driveway like she suggested. He knocked on the door and she opened it wearing a short shirt and a pair of shorts. She hugged Mike and kissed him. Happy to see me? She asked with a smile. Yes, Mike said. You're beautiful. John was a fool to cheat on you. Yes, he was, she said, and he's going to realize just how foolish he was. Come in, I have dinner ready for you. Mike entered the house and smelled chicken fried steak. His mouth watered. This is delicious, Mike said as he finished the meal she made. Just wait till dessert, she said, grabbing his hand and leading him upstairs. Linda had a chair in the bedroom and put Mike behind the door. She had zip ties and duct tape on the dresser. After they planned everything, they heard the front door open. Linda put a finger over her mouth. I'm home, John called from the front room. Whose truck is that in the driveway? I can't get into the garage. I'm sorry, hon, Linda said. I asked Mike Johnson to come over and help with something that broke. I didn't want to bother you at work. Could you come upstairs? We need your help. Mike Johnson? John asked as he came up the stairs. Why him? No real reason, just thought he could help. You don't mind, do you? She asked. No, I guess not, he said, following her into the bedroom. As soon as he entered the room, Mike slammed the door shut and punched him in the throat and stomach. John didn't know what hit him, and soon Mike and Linda had him tied to the chair. What the heck is going on? He yelled once he caught his breath. Linda stood in front of him, hands on her hips. I know you've been cheating on me with Amy for the last 2 years, she said. I also know about your attack on Mike at the bar. So I decided to get some payback. Linda, please don't do this, John begged. Shut up, she said. I'm just getting started. Linda, no, please, John shook his head. Why not? She asked. You've cheated on me for years while I've taken care of you, cleaned the house, washed your laundry, and cooked for you, all while working a job. I've been faithful to you, and this is how you repay me. Well, you're going to watch me now, then you're out of here. Don't make me tape your mouth shut. John looked down, defeated. Linda turned to Mike. After she took his trousers off, Mike looked down, unsure. He had a prosthetic leg. She ran her hands over it for a couple of minutes before looking up at him. If you're uncomfortable, we don't have to do this, he said. Linda smiled at him and continued. You may be missing part of a leg, but you're more of a man than he'll ever be, she said. John gave a silent nod and took his duffel bag and the suitcase that Linda had packed. Feeling defeated, he left the house. After he was gone, Linda leaned into Mike's shoulder and cried. He held her close and gently kissed the top of her head. It will be okay, he said softly. She nodded, wiping her tears. It won't be easy, but I'll manage, she replied. I've already separated our bank accounts. My job will cover the bills for now, but I may have to sell the house eventually. Linda, if it comes to that, you can stay with me, Mike offered. She nodded again. Thanks, Mike. That means a lot to me, she said. Please stay here with me tonight, she begged. Mike agreed, and they held each other until morning. At first, the divorce did not go smoothly. Amy fought it, saying that her actions were just a one-time mistake. After about 6 weeks, Sally arranged a meeting with Mike, Amy, and Amy's lawyer, Bill Green. They met in a conference room at Sally's office. Bill started speaking right away, suggesting that Mike and Amy go to counseling to get past what he called Amy's one-time mistake. Sally interrupted and pulled out a stack of emails and photos, throwing them on the table. Amy and Bill stared at the pile in shock. "Look, Bill," Sally began, "let's get to the point. My client has proof, emails, photos, and videos of many parties with the same men over the past 2 years. We estimate your client did this over 100 times while her husband was in Iraq. If you keep pushing this, we will charge your client with lying under oath and ask for the maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. But if you withdraw your response and have your client agree to Mr. Johnson's original proposal, we can forget about the perjury. What will it be?" "Look, Sally," Bill replied, "you know it's rare for perjury to be prosecuted in divorce cases. Your threats won't work here." "Do you really want to risk it, Bill?" Sally asked. "It's rare, but it does happen, and with the evidence we have, I think a judge would side with us." Bill shook his head. Mike leaned over and whispered something to Sally. She nodded. "How about this?" Sally suggested. "My client wants to speak with Amy alone for a few minutes. He promises to behave. Let's give them some time to talk it out." Bill listened as Amy spoke to him softly. After she finished, he nodded. "Okay," he agreed, "but we'll be right outside the door." Once they left, Amy looked at Mike. "All right, what are you planning?" she asked in a defiant tone. Mike picked up the stack of emails and photos and started laying the photos in front of her. Her eyes widened in shock. Then he pulled out an old photo from his wallet. "Do you know what got me through those 2 tours in Iraq?" he asked. He pointed at the photo, now yellowed with age. It had been taken just before he enlisted. "This. When I didn't hear from you, I thought the worst. I worried something had happened to you. Then I came home and found you with those men. I almost lost it. You can't imagine how I felt when I saw your emails and discovered everything. You might as well have shot me. At least that would have been quicker." Amy started to cry, but Mike wasn't done yet. He threw an email on the table and began reading it aloud. "Hey, babes, did you take care of that little problem?" Then you replied, "Yes, I went to the clinic yesterday. I should be okay for next week's party." He looked at her with hurt in his eyes. "You had an abortion, Amy. Why? Why did you do it? Was I not enough for you?" She shook her head. "You were enough," she cried. "I just missed you so much, and when I met those guys at the club, they made me feel better and I forgot how much I missed you." "Well, you ruined 7 families, counting ours. Do you know that?" he asked. "It's not just our family you broke. Those men had families, too. Did you know that?" She shook her head. "No, I didn't," she sobbed. "What did you think I would do when I came back? Clap my hands and praise you?" he asked harshly. She was crying harder now. "I'm sorry," she said through her tears. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," he said coldly. "The people at your office hate you for this. Those men are getting divorced and will be kicked out of the army. They will have to live with dishonorable discharges for the rest of their lives. There are 6 very angry wives out there who hate you too." He stacked the papers back neatly and looked at her. "Sally will charge you with perjury. You could get 10 years in prison for that," he said. "You might never work in law again. Even if you don't go to jail, you'll always have to watch your back. Those wives are very angry and might want to hurt you." Amy looked at him, shocked. "What are you saying, Mike? Are you threatening me? Did you do something to those guys?" "No," he said calmly. "The only one I hit was John when he tried to provoke me, and that was only after he swung first." "I'm not threatening you. I'm just explaining how things are. Look, just sign the papers and end this now." "Can we ever be friends?" she asked. Mike shook his head. "I don't think so," he said. "After what you did, it will be a long time before I can be around you." She wiped her eyes, looking down, defeated. "Okay," she said quietly. Mike got up and opened the door, letting the lawyers back in. "Have we come to an agreement?" Bill asked. Amy nodded. "Yes," she said. She looked at Sally. "I've decided not to ask for any spousal support. Mike gets a small pension from the army and he needs that. I make enough to support myself. I just want this to be over. Mike was shocked. He wasn't expecting this. Sally nodded. Okay, she said. Let me make this one change and I'll need you to initial it. Bill looked at Amy, surprised. Are you sure about this? He asked. Did he threaten you? No, Bill, she said. I just want this over with. Sally came back with the changed paperwork and an assistant who was a notary. Mike and Amy signed where they were told to. She began crying when she signed the line that said she had to go back to her maiden name. After they finished, Mike held out his hand. Tearfully, Amy took off her rings and gave them to him. He took off his wedding ring and handed it to her. Maybe you can stay faithful to the next man you marry, he said. There are still some of your things at the house. I can bring them by on Saturday. That would be fine, Amy said. Thanks. Sally and Bill stood up and shook hands. I'll withdraw my client's response and meet you at the courthouse to file this today, Bill said. Sally nodded. I'll see you there, she said. Bill and Amy left the room and Mike collapsed in his chair, glad it was finally over. Sally looked at him for a moment. What did you really tell her? She asked. Mike looked at her. I just reminded her of the truth, he said, and the consequences of her actions. 7 families were affected because of this. That's why I never represent cheaters, she said. You're a good man, Mike Johnson. You'll do well. Just stay out of trouble, okay? He smiled. I will, Sally, he said. Thanks. He left the office and headed home, stopping on the way to grab some beer. He called Linda's cell and gave her the news. Come by the house tonight, she said. We can celebrate. You got it, he said, smiling. That Saturday, Mike packed up the few things Amy left and headed for her sister's apartment, where she had been staying. Julie answered the door when Mike rang the bell. Hi, Mike, she said. I brought the rest of Amy's things over, he said. The next time I see her, I'll get an address and send it, she said. What do you mean? Mike asked. Amy left, she said. She quit her job the day you guys signed the papers and left that night. She just packed up and took off. I don't know where she's going, but I think she's leaving the state. Okay, Mike said. Well, if you talk to her, tell her I dropped this off. Julie took what Mike brought and thanked him. Epilogue. A few weeks later, Julie told Mike that Amy had moved far away and was living somewhere in Washington or Oregon. The 6 men she cheated with were all given bad discharges. They also left the area to parts unknown. Mike wondered if they reconnected with Amy, but he didn't really care. He married Linda shortly after their divorces were final. She got pregnant the night they got back at John. They've since had 2 more children and are doing well. Mike was offered a job as a researcher for the Home Front Security Task Force. The pay is good, the benefits are great, and he has access to important information. Better yet, he can work from home but sometimes has to fly to a place called Fort Apache. He was looking through the day's mail and opened a thick envelope when his work phone rang. Mike Johnson, he said, answering the call. Hey, Mike, this is Oscar. How are things? The man at the other end asked. Going great, Oscar. How about you? Mike asked. Living the dream, Oscar said. I wanted to thank you for your work on the Skaggs case. It was invaluable. Thanks, Mike said. Look, I know praise in this business is rare, but Bill wanted me to make sure you got those tickets to Cancun, Oscar said. I just got them today, Mike said. Good, Oscar said. Make sure you and your wife have a good time, you hear? Mike smiled. Oh yeah, he said. We will. Thanks again. He hung up the phone and looked at the tickets. Perfect timing. Their anniversary was coming up and he was looking forward to seeing his wife on the beach. Yes, they would indeed have a good time. Story 2. I was about the last person in town to know. Truth is, that's just a saying. First of all, a place with over 100,000 people is a city, not a town. And the things my wife Heidi did were not of interest to more than a small percentage of people. For introduction, Heidi still looks amazing as we get into our 30s. Another figure of speech, since no one has actually dropped dead because of someone's good looks. She has shiny dark red hair with nice curves. Her face is beautiful, almost like a dream, if not literally. In my dreams, at least, I always look amazing. In reality, my looks are pretty average. I'm not bad looking, but I'm not a Hollywood star either. Most people would probably describe me as medium. The exception is my height. At 6'3.5", I'm definitely not medium height, and some women do find that attractive. To be honest, my height might be one reason why I ended up with my wife, Heidi, who is a year older than me. Heidi and I'm Merle White, have been married for 16 years but don't have any kids. So you could say we aren't exactly trying to be parents, though we do try the usual methods enough times. I work at the main office of a big quick loan company. As the senior VP of marketing, I earn enough for Heidi not to need a job. She stays busy with volunteer work for different good causes. We don't share many hobbies. We might go to a movie or a fair sometimes. Heidi is really into thrift shopping with her best friend, Meredith Daly. They usually go out on Wednesday and Friday nights because that's when the deals are better. Some of these stores stay open until 10 p.m., which I didn't know until Heidi told me. Heidi looks for unique items to sell online. I've seen her check prices on her phone to see what similar items are selling for on eBay. She once bought a pair of women's brand name red shoes for $3 and sold them for $310. She even sold a $5 lunchbox for $35. She makes enough that we had to report her earnings to the IRS last year. I usually go to bed by 9 p.m., so when Heidi and Meredith come home late, they're often grabbing a drink. Sometimes I wake up briefly when Heidi comes to bed, but I almost never fully wake up or look at the clock. Our lives are pretty straightforward, but we do have some adventurous thoughts. We have an open marriage, which we agreed on before we got married. I remember asking her with a smile, "Are we going to be monogamous?" She laughed and said, "No." We sealed the deal with a fist bump. Right after getting married, I still had feelings for Cindy, who I had been seeing before. I slept with Cindy one more time after the wedding, but it was a big mistake. Cindy was upset because I chose Heidi over her, and I felt bad too. I never told Heidi about it, and it was the only time I cheated. Heidi, on the other hand, seemed more adventurous. The first time I went on a business trip, I asked her if she had missed me. She replied, "Well, the gals and I went to the club north of town," in a teasing voice. I joked, "I hope you didn't hook up with every guy there." And she said, "No, just a few, but they weren't worth it," with an exaggerated pout. I thought she might be joking or not, but I loved her and didn't want to press for details. We had an open marriage, after all, and hadn't really talked about how open it should be. Over time, similar answers followed my trips, and I stopped asking. I mostly forgot about our open arrangement. A few years ago, Meredith and Heidi decided to go out dancing at night. They invited me, but I said I hated nightclubs. I didn't ask Meredith how her husband felt about her going out often. They chose Thursday nights for dancing and asked me to be their designated driver. Thrilling. They kept Wednesdays and Fridays for thrift shopping. As I said, I'd be asleep when Heidi came home. A couple of months later, I finally asked how their nights out were going. I asked while Meredith was over for lunch on a Sunday. "Oh, we've been having fun," they both said. Sometimes other friends would join them, and they tried different lounges. They especially liked the Holiday Inn bar on Broadway. They even tried the club north of town one night. When I raised my eyebrows, Meredith quickly said it was too wild for 30- and 40-year-old married women. Laughter from both of us. In the last few months, Heidi started being away more in the evenings. She began volunteering to help serve dinners at the homeless shelter every Saturday night. She tried to get me to help too, but I always had some excuse. Honestly, I don't even remember what it was. I admired her for wanting to help out, though. Thankfully, Heidi didn't push me too hard about coming with her. I have to admit, I wasn't willing to give up a nice evening to serve questionable hot meals to some down-and-out folks. At first, she would be home by 8 p.m., and we'd watch TV or read before going to bed, and sometimes we would have intimate moments. About 6 weeks after she started at the shelter, Heidi told me that some volunteers were starting a singing group to perform folk songs for the homeless families after dinner. She asked if it would be okay if she joined. "I know I'm already out 3 nights a week until after you go to bed. I didn't want to say yes without asking you, but it's a nice thing to do for the community." I thought about it. I missed her at bedtime, but she usually didn't go to bed at 9 p.m. with me anyway, and we only had intimate moments a couple of times a week, so what was I really losing? "Dinner for 2? I said, "Give it a try, honey." Let's see how it goes for a month or two. I really do miss you at night, but maybe they'll decide they don't like your voice," I joked. Truthfully, she was a great singer and dancer since her high school days, or so I'd heard. Heidi started practicing at home. I tapped my foot and enjoyed the songs. My girl was just so charming. She began adding 90 more minutes to her Saturday night routine, which of course went past my bedtime. But one Saturday, there was a late football game with my old school trying for a big win. It went into 2 overtimes, and I got really excited when my Iowa team beat Wisconsin in a close game. The beers I had made me fall asleep on the couch before midnight. I woke up when I heard the garage door open for my wife. I saw it was well after 1 a.m. I stumbled into the bedroom before she got there. This was crazy. The shelter closes around 9:30 p.m. There's no way she was singing folk songs until 1 a.m. I was too groggy to talk about it, but I sure was going too soon. Did she go out drinking and dancing with Meredith and the other gals? What was she thinking? Or did she have someone else under some open marriage rules we never really had? I was angry, confused, a little drunk, and half asleep as I fell back to sleep. In the morning, I dressed like I was going to church. Haida was shocked. I said I wanted to go to church and asked if she wanted to come with me. Pretty normal for a Sunday morning, except that I hadn't gone to church since I was 12, other than for weddings or funerals. She got angry and demanded to know what was going on. I didn't answer, just grabbed my car keys and walked out to the car. I thought about actually driving to a church, but I knew I'd be seen, maybe by someone who knew I wasn't a churchgoer. Why do that? I drove to Benny B's cafe and ordered a big breakfast. It tasted great, even though it was greasy. As I sat there thinking about what to do next, I remembered the Life 360 app on our phones. I installed it last year, thinking it would help us keep track of each other. But for some reason, we never really used it. The icons show where each phone is at any given time and its path around town. Why didn't I think of that last night when she was so late? Probably because I was half asleep. It would have been useful. Anyway, I saw that Haida's phone was moving. She was leaving our neighborhood. So I decided I could go home without having to answer any questions or ask her some of my own. After I got home, I checked the app again and saw she was on a street near Meredith's house. When the icon stopped, I zoomed in and saw it was a house near a bend in the road called Elm Leaf. Then, I wandered into my stamp room and started messing with the stamps on my messy desk. I hadn't touched them in months. I spent a few hours cleaning up the mess and adding stamps from a collection I bought online. It was a boring task, and my mind wasn't really into it. As the day wore on, I thought about what I would say when Haida came home. I decided I would be vague and let her bring up the issue. No real elephants would fit in our small home, after all. I know you're thinking I'm a coward and I'm going to let her walk all over me to avoid a fight. Maybe you're right. Well, actually, I have been making plans to impress you all. I don't quite know what that plan is yet. More importantly, I'm not sure if she has someone else in her life. There could be a simple reason for why she's been out all those nights. I should trust her, but also check things out. I found out where Meredith Daly lives. It wasn't hard to find the name of the other person at that address. In the bottom kitchen drawer, I found an old phone book, the kind that's never updated but still left at people's doors because businesses pay to be in it. There weren't many Dalys, so it only took a minute to find an Elm Leaf address with Gregory and Meredith Daly listed. I remembered Meredith talking about her Greggy in a somewhat mocking tone. Around 1 p.m. on Monday, while at work, I used the 360 app and saw my wife's location in a large building far from any others. Her icon moved slowly inside. Her phone was either in the building or maybe on the roof. Just kidding. It's amazing how the 360 app can pinpoint locations like that. By zooming out, I saw the building was near 2 highways just north of the city. I quickly realized it had to be the local privated club, Rye Bald. I had no further comments about this discovery at that time. I then called the Daly's phone number, almost expecting it to be out of service since most people don't use landlines anymore. To my surprise, a man answered. "Daly residence? Is this Meredith Daly's husband?" I quickly added. "This is Merle White, Heidi's husband." "Oh yeah, my wife's always talking about her best friend, LOL. "That's her," I replied. "You know, the one who spends more time with your wife than with me." I laughed, but didn't feel amused. "I get it, Merle." "Actually, Greg, that's why I called. I was hoping we could meet up, maybe for lunch or coffee, and talk about this. Does that sound okay? Absolutely, he said. It's about time we met. How about today? I work nights, so I'm home now. Come over for some coffee and toast, which is pretty much my breakfast. After thinking for a few seconds, I agreed and said I could be there in less than half an hour. I told my secretary, yes, I still call her that, I had a family issue and might be out for a few days. I didn't need to get anyone's permission as I was in charge and could always be reached by phone if needed. I promised to keep her updated and left. I arrived at their simple white house in an older neighborhood. Greg opened the door just as I was about to ring the bell and invited me into their cozy but plain living room. We went into the kitchen where he made fresh coffee with double cream as I like it and put some toast in the toaster. We sat at the kitchen table, and as soon as he sat down, he said, "Merle, I've been wanting to meet you for so long. I admire how you handle our wives' jobs and don't seem embarrassed about it. That takes confidence." He went on, "Sometimes it's hard for me to deal with Meredith's job, but she always says you treat Heidi with respect and are proud of her working at Rybald." I felt proud for not reacting badly to his comments. I just said, "Thank you," and rubbed my chin, nodding slowly and looking him in the eye. "Is it harder for you, Greg?" "Yeah, especially now that she works Saturdays too. Does your Heidi work on Saturdays?" I nodded, and he said, "That's the busiest night. They must be making a lot of money." I agreed. "Yeah, I think they follow each other's lead." "Definitely," he said. "I often hear them talking before they leave for work. I'm not invited to join them, but they don't really hide what they're saying." "That sounds like them," I said. "Do you know which one started working there first?" "Oh, your wife was there first. I think it's been about 2.5 years, maybe longer." "That sounds right," I agreed. "Then Heidi convinced Meredith to join her pretty openly," he said. "My wife at first didn't like the idea, but eventually she started pushing me to agree that she could work as a dancer. My initial response was a loud, 'No way,' but I knew the money would help us a lot. Also, I can't make my stubborn wife do anything she doesn't want to do. You can lead them to water, but you can't make them stop drinking," I said understandingly. "Exactly. So, Merle, tell me, how do you handle having a wife who works like mine? Can you give me any tips on how not to feel like you're powerless?" "Well, for me, it's just natural, I guess. I love Heidi so much that divorce was never an option," I said, even though I was unsure about that in my mind. "Plus, I'm proud that my own wife works at the famous Rybald Privated Club. The girls there are said to be the hottest, and that gives me a bit of pride. Do you feel that way, Greg?" "I can't say I think about it much. This is a big town, and I don't think most of the guys I know go to Rybald. Even if they do, they probably don't know the Merry Widow is my wife. I even heard some guys at the gym say the Merry Widow is one of their favorites, and they didn't know her husband was right there," Greg shared, with a small, proud smile. "Guys talk about flaming red a lot more. There's a fan club for your wife, but most can't afford a private room with her. They definitely can't afford the VIP rooms where I hear your Heidi works now." I smiled, trying hard not to show my upset feelings. It hit me that after the shock that Heidi was working like this, I might take some pride in her being one of the best. No one wants their wife to be seen as anything less. I felt worn out and made excuses to leave. Greg seemed reluctant, but we agreed to stay in touch and help each other deal with our problems. We also agreed, with a wink, that our spouses didn't need to know about our talks. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to meet him again. We shook hands, and I went to the nearest bar where I drank too much thinking about Greg daily. The police drove me home, probably using my ID to find my address. They rang the doorbell, and Heidi let us in. She was in her flannel pajamas. I found out later that the police often did this to help out bar owners and drunk people. When I woke up, it was almost noon. My first thought, after using the bathroom, was that last night was the first time in years my wife got home to bed before me. She must have heard the toilet flush because she came in quickly, holding my face and showing concern. She hugged me and touched my messy hair. She didn't kiss me, probably because I smelled bad. She didn't ask about why I was a mess, but I knew I'd have to explain soon. I just needed to figure out what to say. She stayed close to me most of Tuesday. We didn't talk much. I mumbled apologies for my bad behavior and said something about being drugged, even though I knew that wasn't true. It was a weak excuse, but it worked for now with how I was feeling. Who knows? When the time comes to confess, I might feel ready to tell the whole truth about how it feels to learn your sweet wife is the town's top dancer. Maybe she had a feeling about why I was off. She didn't ask more questions the rest of the day. She was there to help but didn't push for serious talk. She made a simple but nice dinner. We read for a few hours and went to bed. No intimacy. She just snuggled up behind me and we fell asleep. My last thought was that Heidi didn't feel like a stranger lying in our bed. In the morning, I took it slow, had breakfast that my caring wife made, and got on my home office computer. I told her I took a sick day to recover from my hangover. Later, she asked if I wanted her to stay home, but I said I was okay and she could go shopping. As she left to meet up with her friend, I realized not all her shopping days were spent working at the club. Some of her time really was spent finding bargains. While checking my office emails, I thought of Spencer McCoy, a guy who worked with me before retiring last year. He was older, but we got along well. He and his wife had even come over for BBQ a few times. Spencer had shared stories about Rye Bald, and he could help me learn more about Heidi's work. I still had his number on my phone, so I called him. He picked up on the third ring, and we did our usual greetings. I asked if he remembered anything about a woman from Rye Bald named Flaming Red. He snorted and went quiet for a moment. Remember? I watched her dance just 2 nights ago, pal. She's unforgettable, my favorite dancer. But why is down-to-earth Merle White interested in Flaming Red? Oh no, don't even go there, boss. Jackpot in my search for info. Spence knew about my famous wife, and I thought he'd spill everything. I dodged his questions about my interest and suggested we catch up over lunch. We agreed to meet at noon on Friday. He suggested going to Rye Bald, but I said they were known for many things except good food, and I couldn't afford the bill. We settled on Sherry's across from our office, which we knew well. I spent the rest of Wednesday at home going through the online archives of the City Tribune, which has all its issues since going digital. Searching Flaming Red, I found lots of ads from Rye Bald. The earliest was from about 2.5 years ago, but they increased a lot over the last year and a half. Then I found 2 gossip pieces linking Mayor Burns to the mysterious Flaming Red from Rye Bald. I read those 3 times but got little solid info. This reminded me of reading that our mayor was involved with some woman. At that time, I had no clue who Flaming Red was or that I was sleeping with her every night. A photo was mentioned but not shown in the index. I noted the issue date to find it in hard copy at the library. In the sports section, a local baseball star called his girlfriend hotter than Flaming Red. It seemed he was talking about my Flaming Red, who was apparently a well-known symbol of sex appeal. I felt proud, but wondered how well this athlete knew Flaming Red, or if he was just another admirer. Searching Heidi White, I found a few things I already knew. She had been maid of honor at her cousin's wedding and a witness in a hit-and-run case. She was also listed as a volunteer at a couple of charity events. But I found another I didn't know about. Heidi White was described as an employee who witnessed an armed robbery at Rye Bald last December. The article talked about the robbery. The Tribune had interviewed several employees who saw it, but they only mentioned 2 masked men with guns who ran out a side door. Among the employees named was my wife and one Meredith Daly. Interesting. I remembered reading about that heist. If I recalled right, they never caught the robbers, but maybe they did, and I missed the follow-up. What intrigued me most was that Heidi never told me about being questioned on such a scary event. Not once. I would surely remember hearing that my love faced armed robbers. Maybe she didn't want to make me worry. I tend to be overly cautious, or maybe she just forgot to mention it. After all, she forgot to mention she had ever been inside that shady club before the girls' disappointing night out a few weeks ago. I started a new Word file on my PC to record what I found, just in case. These might be useful in the future. I labeled the file Insurance and copied in the articles. I avoided more talks with Heidi that day because she got home after my bedtime. On Thursday, it would have been harder since her girls' night out began late. But I stayed at the office to get some work done. I called my new friend Greg Daly and reached him before his night shift. He sounded upbeat. "What's up?" "Greg, I wanted to ask about the robbery around Christmas at Rye Bald. Do you remember?" "Of course, buddy. Both our ladies saw it." "Right. So, did they catch the robbers?" "I'm pretty sure they didn't. I remember our gals talked about it for weeks. They were quoted in the Tribune. They had this weird fear that the robbers would come after them to keep them quiet. I said it wasn't likely since the gals didn't see anything useful. I ended the call saying I was just curious about the case and gave a friendly goodbye to keep communication open. I've got to give it to my wife. She had been so thoughtful. Her name was suddenly in the newspaper as a witness to an armed robbery, but she kept her real fears of payback to herself. She didn't want to trouble her husband with any of it. I would have been very worried if I had known. She must have been scared that someone would tell me about the news. She is the bravest woman I know. On my way home, I stopped by the main library. I went into the big room with old City Tribune issues from many years. I took out the date I had written in my wallet and found the January 27th issue quickly. I remembered seeing the front page photo back then, but I never read the gossip pages. The black and white photo of my dear wife with her new friend Rudolph Burns was on page 6. It wasn't taken in the fancy Rye-Bald Club because they don't allow cameras there. Instead, it looked like a downtown street with what might have been the steps of City Hall in the background. A limo was front and center with a pretty lady stepping out, facing the camera, as a well-dressed man helped her out using both his hands. Anyone who knew the mayor would have recognized him from the side. The elegant woman was less easy to recognize with her hair covering her forehead and looking down at her feet. If one of Flaming Red's fans saw the picture, they might not know it was her, but the stage name in the caption would have been a big clue. A casual friend of Heidi White probably wouldn't recognize her in the mayor's eager hands, but I had no doubt it was her. Wow, outside the club even? Clearly they were close. I made a few photocopies and went home. Friday came and I was looking forward to lunch with Spencer. Since the restaurant was near my office, I went in a couple of hours early to handle some emails and sign a few things. My right-hand woman was worried about my absences, but tried to hide her curiosity. I briefly thought that maybe Gretch could be someone to consider after Haida, but it was just a fleeting thought for several good reasons. When I got to the restaurant, it was packed for the Friday lunch rush, but Spence had found a small table near the back where I joined him. I saw Sherry, the owner, when I came in. After saying hello, we grabbed the menus between the condiment jars and made our choices. Sherry herself came over to take our orders. Even the owner helped out during the busy lunch hour. We exchanged a few friendly words before she went to place our orders. We started talking about Flaming Red right away. Spence asked why I was so interested in one of the town's most well-known ladies. He had a big grin on his face. I replied that this was the first time I had heard her called that. He said there were many names for a lady of the night, but she sells her time for money. I decided to stick with Dancer. My interest in this club, Dancer, actually comes from my wife. Heidi saw a woman's picture with the mayor and thinks she knows the woman from college. She wanted me to check into it, and that reminded me of you. It seemed like a good reason to catch up and see what's going on in your life. I had been ready for this question and had practiced my words. Oh yeah, Mayor Burnsy. Some folks around town believe it was a real affair, or maybe was is better. I think the stories in the paper made him stop, but I saw them very cozy one night. I heard the mayor asked for her by name when he came to the club. I'm not sure how he could afford Flaming Red. Maybe he gets a discount. I got a private dance from her last year and it cost a lot, but it was a night I won't forget. Cool. My wife will be very interested. Do you know anything else about her or them? Well, I don't go there all that often, but I saw them together more than once, only one time being very close, but also just walking hand in hand or talking closely. I haven't seen Rudy in a while, but Red is there pretty often. I try to get close to her, but I know it's a lost cause. What a woman, he said with a heavy breath. I smiled at his look of admiration. Anything else you can remember about her? Do you know any personal details about her? Not really, Merle. When I talked with her, she mostly asked me about myself, nothing personal about her. I had to ask, what else did you talk about? Well, he said, each dancer has her own way of doing things, but Red is straightforward and gets right to the point, which is why she charges the most. Looking around to see if anyone was listening, I asked, care to explain more? Do you want all the details? And more, I grinned. Well, you really want to know, huh? But you helped me a lot in my career, so here you go. No favors, Spence. You earned every promotion. Thank you, Merle. Well, I'll tell you more about my time with Flaming Red. I saw them cozy. What I saw was the mayor and Red in a swing built for two. She was topless, and his arm was around her shoulders, resting on her bare chest. She was rubbing her cheek on the back of his hand. It was clear she wanted his hand there. She had her left hand on his lap, and it looked like she was maybe squeezing. He was licking his upper lip and smiling and rolling his eyes like this was the best moment of his life. Since there had to be a dozen people watching, I just couldn't believe an elected official would do that. I figured he must have been under the influence of something strong, and maybe she was too, but I don't think she has any voters to answer to. I didn't see them go further, but soon they got out of the swing and went into her private VIP room. I can't say for sure if he had CC with her or not. But all that was about how Mayor Burns got with her. You skipped over what happened to Spencer McCoy? Do I guess that he got with someone too? Well, I can't say I made love with the fabulous Flaming Red, but I did finish, and those gals have a way to make you feel like you actually did it with them. Just too much to resist for a simple man like me. She was amazing. Spencer wound down like a torn balloon. Okay, gotcha lucky. Thank you very much. I wish you could be there when I tell this to my wife, I said. I was feeling very sick and having trouble hiding it. I had to get out of there. I left $40 on the table to cover the tab and told Spencer my stomach flu was coming back. I don't know if he believed that. If he ever learns he was telling his story to the husband of Flaming Red, he will perhaps understand why I felt so sick. When I got home about 3 p.m., Heidi was, of course, at work. Or it might have been her night to visit the Goodwill shops. Hard to keep track of her busy schedule. I think I have pretty much made up my mind what to do with this problem, but needed a couple of bourbon and Coke doubles to help with my upset stomach. Just about the only good thing about keeping her around. Well, you heard it from eyewitnesses, the best in the county. That alone counts for a lot. But the downside is the thought that I am getting with her at best once, or with luck, twice a week. I could presumably pay for her services at the club, that often for a lot less money than it costs to support her for life. Holy shit! The money! What is the matter with me? I interrupted my thoughts. What I had heard made it very clear she was making thousands a night, maybe, quick mental arithmetic, close to 350 nights since she started. Since she didn't have any friends or family leeching off her, and I paid all the household expenses, and was pretty sure she doesn't have a major drug habit. Where could all that money have gone? Did she even pay income taxes? I hope. But I don't see how she could have, since her Social Security number is on our joint return. I don't think a person can file 2 separate tax returns. Did Rybald even file W-2S? OMG, this really needs some further investigation. I may be divorcing Heidi, but I damn sure don't want her ending up in a federal prison. I also wouldn't want to walk away from a possible share of hundreds of thousands in cash. I had been planning on wearing a disguise and going to the club tonight to check out their star attraction. No. 1,000 times no. Now what do we need to do to find her stash? I had all night to start here at home. She must have some incriminating, let's just call it informative, stuff hidden around somewhere. I started with our fire safe and looked into every envelope and folder in there. Of course, nothing. I got out a ladder and looked on top of every piece of furniture in the house and garage. Lots of dust. The bedroom and bathroom, of course. Every drawer was carefully gone through and turned over. Her big jewelry box turned up a fairly well-hidden secret drawer, exposing a couple of gaudy-looking necklaces that I don't recall ever seeing on her, and didn't think they were her usual style. Had to be fake diamonds and maybe stuff she wore on the job. There was also one of those glassine-fronted cardboard sleeves that collector coins come in. That held an obviously old-style 1833 gold coin of the United States. The outer ring said 4D, which I guessed meant dollars. I was reasonably sure the value today would be a lot more than its value in 1833. These things were interesting, but wouldn't prove a thing. I quickly passed through my home office with a brief search. She rarely went in there as she used her cell phone instead of a PC, and she would never have invaded the hanging files I go through so often. Her closet held about 3 dozen garments, most with pockets. Nothing revealing, I had to assume she kept her business wardrobe at Rybald. A lot of searching the pockets and purses turned up nothing but pocket lint. A side trip to my PC and a 15-minute search for rare coins found one that looks just like this one. It listed at $600,000 in good condition. That's dollars, American! I know nothing about grading coins, but this thing was probably worth as much as our house. Well, a big puzzle, a major mystery indeed. I thought about taking the coin to a coin shop, but figured she was likely to check on it regularly, so I decided to leave it in the jewelry box where I found it. For now. The search continued into the kitchen, where there are numerous drawers with recipes and other cooking-related stuff. A one-drawer vertical file is full of folders for magazine clippings, etc., like holiday recipes, making ice cream, basting birds, etc., etc. One folder was hand-labeled Grandma's Recipes and held a medium-thick manila envelope. Heidi is an excellent cook, and she had often credited her mom's mom with the inspiration. The manila envelope was closed with one of those twisty strings that wrap around a cardboard button. I didn't think Heidi would hide anything important in the kitchen, but since I never cook, it might be a safe place for her. I didn't expect much, but just to be sure, I opened it. As I pulled out the papers, my heart raced. There were a bunch of 5x7 color photos on top. It was clear they showed Mrs. Heidi White, also known as Flaming Red, in various states of dress and undress, with other people, mainly men, who were also partly or fully undressed. The photos showed them in fancy hotel rooms and some outdoor spots, in different poses and with intimate contact. Some looked like they were taken by a professional. Many showed different levels of closeness that I didn't want to see with my wife. I'm trying to stay calm, but how many of you have seen a full-color album of your wife in intimate poses with other men? I paused at one picture because the back of the man's head, between my wife's legs, looked like Spence McCoy's curly black hair. I thought, many men have curly black hair and would love to be in these pictures. The pictures could have filled a book about rude photos. Maybe they had. Ignoring my growing anger, I found a couple of papers titled Ribald Employee Regulations. I put them aside to read later if I got bored. Next, there was a small address book. It had a dozen names, just a first name and a phone number, all written in what looked like my wife's writing. None seemed to be friends' names like Meredith. It was easy to guess what the entries were since each one was a man's name. Of course, her real friends are on her cell phone. I bet these names are not, which reminded me to check her phone next time she's asleep. Scanning the names, I saw one that stood out. It was Spence. I checked my phone and saw it matched Spencer McCoy's number. Ignoring that would be foolish. Not necessarily a problem. He told me he had been alone with her and had gotten close. Is it strange for a woman to save the number of a man she has been close with? Maybe Spence just forgot to mention that he gave her his number, but they didn't talk again. The man in the photos might just look like him. Yeah, maybe. And who took these pictures anyway? Maybe the whole thing was in my imagination, but I was starting to think my old friend knew a lot more about Flaming Red than he let on, like how she looks when you're close in a grassy field outside. His report might just be a cover-up for an affair he didn't want anyone to know about. I was getting angry. Another name in the book was Rudy. That had to be Mayor Rudolph Burns. Not a common name nowadays. Do you think she had to discuss some important city business? In the Grandma's Recipes folder were a couple of small wall calendars. Numbers were written on many dates in what looked like my wife's handwriting. They started with Wed, January 17th on the 2018 calendar with $605 written. On Friday, January 19th, she wrote $762. Wed. January 24th had $750 and Fry. January 26th had $1,210. Mid-January was about when my wife and Meredith started their Goodwill shopping trips. Entries also appeared in the Thursday boxes about the time those girls' nights out began. I looked ahead in the second calendar, and dollar entries started showing up 4 nights in a row. Saturdays were added, and they had bigger amounts. Remember what happened on Saturdays? At first, the Saturday entries had smaller amounts in the low hundreds, but then they jumped to the low thousands. I think this was when the singing started. Eventually, the Saturday numbers went up to the mid-thousands each. I imagined her climbing the ladder of success, her determination clear. All entries stopped at the end of the 2019 calendar. To confirm, I checked the last week in August 2019 when we went on our Alaska cruise. Not a single entry. At least she didn't work while I was asleep on the ship. If these numbers mean what I think they mean, my wife started renting out her time and got good at it fast. The totals didn't add up on the calendar, but must be a lot. There were no calendars after 2019, so either she stopped this record-keeping or found a new place to hide the later months. Just then, I heard the garage door opening, so I quickly put everything back in the Grandma's Recipes folder and quietly left the kitchen. I left the light on because I didn't know if turning it off could be seen from the garage through the door crack. I took off my clothes as I hurried upstairs. I don't usually set my alarm for Saturdays since it's a day off, but I kept my watch on and set it for 4 a.m. I was sure the silent vibration wouldn't wake Heidi. I pretended to be asleep and snored a bit when she quietly came into the bedroom. On Saturday at 4 a.m., the vibration on my wrist woke me. I had a secret plan. Playing detective turned out to be very exciting. Sure, finding out about my wife's cheating was making me upset, but I already felt our marriage was over. This investigation was somehow helping me feel better. If I failed as a husband, maybe I could work as a private investigator. I got dressed quietly and took her cell phone from the charger on her nightstand without making any noise. I went down to the kitchen, where the light was still on, and closed the door behind me. I poured some leftover coffee from yesterday's pot, added ice, and sat at the counter. I put Heidi's phone on the counter and opened Grandma's Recipes. I went to the text messages on her phone. I looked up Spencer McCoy's number on my phone and then found the same number on Heidi's phone, though it didn't have his name saved. I read many exchanges between them going back several months. These modern phones can hold so much info, even if I can't always figure out how to use them. Their texts started with Spencer thanking her for the amazing time he had with her and saying how much he appreciated her. She must have thought it was silly, but I knew she liked praise from men. I had used that to my advantage many times. Her response was surprisingly warm. She told him how much she enjoyed his loving and said she had never let anyone go all the way with her in the VIP room before. I thought that was probably a lie, but it showed me that she had let this guy get very close to her. That's different from what my friend had told me, but maybe he didn't want to tell me everything about my own wife. Spencer apologized for finishing quickly, and she told him sweetly that it was normal in a club setting. Then she shocked me with the text, "Next time we meet outside club and I make you last hours." I had to put the phone down for a minute. My God, she was already planning a next time with Spencer. This was clearly turning into an affair, and I'm sure her boss would not allow it. Spencer is a smooth talker and still looks good, but he's at least 20 years older than my wife, who could have almost any man she wanted. My wife. Unbelievable. Their texts continued, and Spencer started saying, "I love you," after they met up a second time. She never said it back, but would respond with a heart or Cupid emoji. They kept meeting once or twice a week, usually before her job at Rybald. She texted him, "No good after work. I be orgasmed out. Merle raise hell if I come home at 3 a.m. I could understand why that would be true. They also met inside the club, but tried not to do it too much, since why pay the club when he was getting it for free so often? I assumed no money was involved, but who knows? They didn't text about every detail, but I knew she was good at certain things. Their texts were full of talk about when and where to meet again. They both liked using the F word. The first time Spencer used it, he apologized. She told him, "Spence, I don't like that as cuss word, but always want to hear it from her mouth if you use it as verb to say what we did or you plan to do with me." That really excited Spencer. He replied, "Deal. I want to hear you say fuck a lot for what we do, but not with anybody else. If you go all the way with client, I wanted to say you made love, not fucked him. If Merle wants to get laid, then say laid. Don't ever say you fucked him. If you think that will happen, text me before and I give you permission. Maybe I will say no. Understand?" Wow. That was a lot to take in. First, it meant he knew her real name and not just her club name, Flaming Red. He also knew she was my wife, long before I talked to him pretending it was on behalf of my wife. Then, the fact that he was acting like he had the right to control her and making her ask for permission before being with me, her lawful husband. At no point did she argue with him. She just went along with it. That was too much for me. Most of their other texts were about when and where to meet again, but they seemed to be meeting less often lately. She was often busy when he wanted to meet. They texted a lot about Mayor Burns during that time. After the newspaper outed her, he lost his temper. He scolded her for being with Rudy, and she begged him to understand. She stressed how important it was for her job and her income. She started to show her usual strong personality again, and he backed off. Their argument ended when my wife said, "The mayor is stopping it for now, but I will be with Rudy whenever I want, and I don't care what anyone says." So Spencer's tough act only lasted a few weeks. I read a shocking text exchange from a month ago. He started it with, "OMG, 100 yards from spouses at picnic." It seemed they sneaked away for a quick moment in the woods. This caught my attention because around that time, Heidi and I were at the annual pig roast at Palisades Park. It was for past and present employees of Finco. I remember Spencer McCoy was there, chatting with me and even more with my wife. I didn't notice if they disappeared, but I was busy talking to other employees, and it's possible she slipped away into the woods. She could have been with several guys, for all I knew. Then came Heidi's response. "I know, that's the wildest ever. You finished in 3 mins. I even heard his voice through the trees." Damn, something to discuss when Heidi and I talk about infidelity. The rest of the texts were short, mostly about their occasional meetups until I hit the big one I was expecting. "Christ, Heidi, why didn't you warn me? Merle just called, wants to meet." "So?" "He wants to have lunch and catch up. He asked if I know about Flaming Red." "Jesus, this is big. Maybe I'm in trouble. I thought he didn't know about my job. What did you say?" she texted. "A little bit. If he knows Flaming Red by name, he must have an idea. I said she's my favorite dancer and a hottie. He would know I was lying if I said I didn't know anything," Spencer replied. Heidi asked, "Can you call me now? I'm alone. Texting is crap." "Right away." Damn, I lose the record when they switch to voice calls, so what can we infer? He must have asked her what to say to me and how to act. I guess she told him to downplay it, but he had already revealed some information, so he had to give believable details. Whatever their relationship had become, it wasn't clear if they knew I suspected my wife was the Flaming Red person. I hadn't suggested such a thing. It's all too confusing for me. What I really wanted to know was how she felt about our marriage. Not that I planned to stay, but was she even trying to stay married? Mostly it was an issue of pride for me, not reality. Sunday, we were still sleeping in the same bed, but not touching or talking. I stayed in bed as long as I could stand it, then got up, ate some cereal, and headed out. I told Haida I was going to the office in a polite tone. She said, "Have a nice day." I had a key, of course, and did lots of cleanup work so I wouldn't have a huge mess when I decided to show up full-time. On my return, I took the long way, driving past Rye Bald. There were 2 cars near one of the entrances and one far out in the big parking lot. Maybe the latter had just failed to start last night. I lingered for a while, thinking the ones close to the door could be managers' cars. I used my trusty cell phone and Googled the name of the general manager of this place. Devin Durand. Small chance, maybe, but why not? I went over and chose the smaller single door, well past the double doors clearly meant for crowds. I knocked as loudly as I could, about 4 or 5 times. Just as I was about to give up, a beautiful young woman, dressed in casual office clothes, came down a flight of stairs. She hesitated behind the glass door. Not knowing what else to do, I held my wallet up to the glass, showing my driver's license for her to read. She squinted to see my name and then started tapping on her cell phone. In seconds, she opened the door a crack and asked, "Merle White, are you related to Heidi White?" I said I was her husband with my best big smile. "She's not here today, Mr. White. The club is closed on Sundays." "Of course, I know that, ma'am. I was hoping to see Devin Durand if he's working today." She went back to her phone and spoke with someone. "He says fine, Mr. White," she said, holding the door wider. I stepped in and motioned for her to lead the way. Cool. Now I had only a few seconds to figure out what I was going to say. Planning ahead is my mantra. 1 floor up, which was the top floor, we went a short distance to what looked like a corner office. I followed her into a large, walnut-paneled office. She introduced me to a tall man with regular features, half bald and half gray-haired, and we shook hands. "I am so happy to meet our star employee's husband at long last." I smiled and replied, "And I am pleased to meet the man who made Flaming Red the hottest property in town." "Oh, I think she pretty much did that on her own, Merle. Please sit down," he said, pointing to an office chair nearby. "Janet, get us something to drink, will you?" "I'll have the usual, honey." He looked at me. "Merle, we can't serve alcohol here on a Sunday, but we have other choices," he said. "Diet Cola, please," I replied. Noticing a Hawkeye cap on the desk, I took a chance. Looks like the Hawks are heading to the Outback Bowl again this year. He smiled and said he had been a bench warmer for Iowa basketball 25 years ago. I mentioned I was on the student council in 2008-9. This got us talking while Honey got our drinks. He told her to take a break in the lunchroom. "So what can I help you with, Merle? Or is this just a friendly visit?" "Well," I began, "I saw your car in the parking lot and decided to stop by. I should have called first." "Nonsense, Merle. Sunday's perfect. During the week, it might take a while to get an appointment." "Great," I said. "I didn't think it could wait another week. It's about Heidi's job." He frowned and said, "Well, there isn't much I can share, even with her spouse, you understand?" "I'll get straight to it, Devin. Has Heidi been paying state and federal income taxes? I know she makes a good living." He looked relieved. "No, and yes, Merle, no, we haven't been withholding taxes. We set her up as a business contractor, Customer Perquisites, LLC. So she has to handle her taxes herself. And yes, she makes good money, all well earned. But she could have told you that herself." "I'm sorry to trouble you about it, sir. I was afraid to ask her directly. She can be a bit scatterbrained with money and gets touchy if she thinks I'm talking down to her." "Well, I don't know your wife that well, Merle, but I can say she is strong-willed and doesn't like being talked down to," he said with a grin. "Anything else I can help with?" "That's about it, sir. Her income didn't show up on our family tax returns the last couple of years." He pondered. "She probably set up a business tax ID and uses that instead of her personal SSN. Strange she didn't remind you." "Maybe she did, Devin, and I forgot. Thanks so much." "No problem. Anything else on your mind?" he asked. "Can I ask a different kind of question, sir? About Heidi's relationship with the mayor? It's great you stood by her, but wasn't the publicity embarrassing for Rybald?" "Actually, I loved it." He smiled. "I introduced them and the publicity did us a lot of good. There's no better way to get mentioned in the paper. And since our company deals with adult themes, it was perfect for us. Maybe not perfect for her husband, seeing her in the paper and all." "No need to worry," I assured him. "Heidi and I have an open marriage, and I was a bit proud of that story. Well, it wasn't a love affair, more about showing off. That's why they were so open about it. His wife didn't like it, so it had to stop, but that's private." That hit close to home and made me think. When I got back home, my wife wasn't there. I checked and she was at Meredith's. When she got home an hour later, she looked tired but seemed nicer, relationship-wise. I thought about asking her to dinner but didn't want to risk a deep conversation. I watched TV, then said goodnight and went to bed. After some restless thinking, I got back up. Hearing the TV downstairs, I knew she wasn't coming to bed soon. I decided to deal with this soon. I grabbed her jewelry box, found the hidden drawer, and took out a valuable gold coin and some cheap necklaces. I put them in my briefcase and locked it. Then I checked my phone for local coin shops and found one downtown. Open at 10 a.m. I finally got to sleep and didn't notice when my wife climbed into bed. I minimized time with my wife and went out for breakfast downtown. Halfway through a dry omelet, I got a call from Greg Daly. "Hey, buddy," he said. "Wow, what did you do to your wife? She spent the afternoon crying to my wife." "I knew she was there, but have no clue why she's upset, Greg." "I could tell something was up, so I stayed close to listen. She's all upset about you leaving her. I couldn't get the full story." "Did you tell her you wanted out?" "No, definitely not, but maybe it's not such a bad idea," I replied. "Holy smokes, man. You're my hero. Your wife is the prettiest woman I've ever seen, and you handle her job as a dancer so well. If you two don't make it, what hope is there for the rest of us?" No, it's not like there's trouble in our marriage," I reassured him. "Well, you should tell your wife that. She thinks you're going to dump her. She was crying her eyes out." I turned on the recorder on my phone. "What did she say, Greg?" He hesitated. "Maybe I'm overstepping, Merle. I'm no marriage expert. Heidi was rambling about how you think you know everything. She mentioned her Spencer, kept calling him her Spencer. My wife knows who that is. Do you know who that is, Merle?" I nodded a little. "She also talked about some guy named Rye. You'll know about that, too." I didn't get all the details, but you know where she works and what she does. There was some stuff about the mayor, too, but I didn't get that part. Everything he said lined up with what I already knew. I tried to calm him down. "Yes, I know a lot about her dancing job, and this Spencer guy is an old friend from work. He told me he's been with her at the club, but I don't think she knows I know. She might think I'd be mad about it. I'll make sure she knows I'm not." He felt relieved to hear that. I thanked him a lot for calling and said we should always keep each other updated about the ladies without them knowing. The surprise in all this was that Haida seems very worried about keeping our marriage together. I felt a bit proud of that. I thought that when I confronted her, she would just ask for a friendly divorce to focus on her career. I need to think more about this. It was after 10 o'clock, so I walked a block to a golden coins shop. A cheerful man welcomed me. He wasn't the old bald guy I pictured in this job, and he seemed to be the only one in the small shop. I asked about appraisals. He said he could do a quick look for free, but an official one would cost a bit. I put the gold coin and some cheap jewelry on the counter. He looked at them closely and then at me suspiciously. "Sir, how did you get these?" he asked sternly, looking a bit scared. "They're my wife's," I said. "Then you should know she bought them here last year." "Oh, wow, I didn't know that. What a coincidence," I responded, thinking fast. "And why do you need them appraised?" he asked. I looked as sad as I could and said, "I'm sorry to tell you, but my wife died suddenly last week. I'm going through her stuff and thought these might be valuable. Didn't want to just give them to her sister if they're worth a lot." "Worth a lot is an understatement, Mr. Sorry, I'm Merle White, Heidi's husband. Well, her late husband." He shook my hand and looked at me with sympathy. After a moment he said, "I can tell you exactly what she paid for these. Let me check." He went to the back and came back with a ledger. She bought the $4 gold coin for $440,000 early last year and the necklaces for $355,000 later. She got a great deal. I think the coin is worth more than $600,000 now. I'm not a tough bargainer with someone as lovely as your wife was. "I'm sure you gave her a fair deal. Do you know why she chose these items?" I asked. "Yes, Mr. White, because I recommended them. She didn't want to keep cash in a safe. She wanted something that would grow in value, but she didn't trust the stock market. I told her gold and diamonds were smart investments these days. We spent a lot of time talking about it." He hesitated, then added, "When a beautiful woman asks how to invest $500,000, you can imagine she gets great service." He smiled, then looked away. I knew my wife might have flirted to get a good deal, but with such big transactions, it might have been more than just flirting. But I guess I'll never know for sure. I asked how we might sell these items. He suggested, "They're too high value for our store, but I could help you get them to Sotheby's or a similar place." "That would be great if you could," I said. "But we have some family decisions to make before we can move. Thanks so much. I never expected such a clear answer when I found your name online." I left knowing he would soon find out his lovely customer was very much alive. He would deal with that when the time came. At the office, I put in an honest afternoon of work. Dinner was calm, but we did eat together. I tried to praise the cook without sounding too eager. Before bed, I quietly put over $750,000 back into the old jewelry box. I knew I needed to talk to her about finding a safer place for it, but that could wait. I went to bed but could not sleep for a long time. When she joined me, I felt like we should talk right then, but we were both too tired for such a big conversation. I also knew I didn't have all the answers yet. I realized that I still loved her, maybe even more than before, in a strange way. Her career is impressive. She is strong and in control. She seems like one of the most accomplished women since Cleopatra. But she still values our marriage a lot. On the flip side, she has lied to me and been with many other men, as long as they had money. She likely doesn't even know how many. She spends most of her time with other men. I don't worry much about broken marriage vows. They are just words that no one pays much attention to. I don't even remember our vows exactly. We used a modern version that doesn't put the man above the woman. I was a bit worried about diseases, but I had to assume a high-class escort would be well protected and tested often. It hurt that she gave up 4 nights a week with me to be with others. But we didn't usually make love on those nights anyway. When we did, it was great, often during the day. From what I know, our sex life was better than most people's, maybe even more frequent. I had to admit to myself that I still loved her and maybe always will. But does she really love me? I realized I don't know what love really is. I know that sexual love is separate from all the other feelings two people have, but I think you need both for a real marriage. If she told me she wanted to stay married but only make love with clients and the occasional Spencer or Rudolph, we would be done. Even if she was the best cook and talker, that wouldn't be a marriage. Or look at it the other way. Would I leave and divorce her if I could have frequent sex with her? I don't think so. Yes, I'd want that sex, call it a special membership, but I would want to find a new partner for the other parts of married life. I don't want to come home to an empty house. That's not a home. Wow, I think deep thoughts sometimes. One thing was becoming clear. We cannot go on like this, with her living that life and me pretending not to know. If we are to have any chance, she has to quit her job. I think I could maybe handle her having more sex than me, but my pride wouldn't let me live knowing I was the husband of the loosest woman in town. Sorry to be so sensitive. So, she would have to agree to quit the job and lifestyle, but I'm almost sure she wouldn't. I also doubt she would agree to move far away and start over. I finally drifted off to sleep. Hey audience! If you like this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.